Well, Mbeki spoke today. Earlier this morning, the chair of Parliament's Home Affairs Committee, Musa Chabane, said he still believes that MPs should vote for the electoral reform bill, despite the huge criticism that's been levelled against it. As you know, the bill's supposed to allow independent candidates to compete for seats in Parliament and provincial legislatures, but civil society groups say that the bill will actually make it much harder for independent candidates to campaign for office than it would be for political parties. Anton Van Dalsen is a legal counsellor at the Helen Suzman Foundation. Anton, good afternoon to you. If this bill is passed, what do you think the consequences would be? What would happen in our elections?
I think let's take a step back. It can become quite a complicated topic, but I think there are two issues which one has to keep in mind. The first one is the feeling amongst many civil society organizations and voters is that there is very little contact or connection between the voter and Parliament. In the sense of voters for a national election vote for a party, they don't know who represents them in Parliament as far as the people are concerned. And it also has a very bad effect on what we see as the necessary standards for accountability. Because if the voter wants to contact somebody in Parliament who he feels is representing him, he doesn't know who to contact. So there's this one aspect is the general accountability thing, and the other aspect is the bill before Parliament at the moment, which is there because the Constitutional Court came out with a judgment just over 2 years ago, which said that Parliament must make provision for independent candidates. And why I'm bringing these two separate things together is that if the proposal from ourselves and many other civil society organizations is for Parliament to change the electoral system and to have a multi-party proportional system, very much the same as what we have currently in the municipalities. In other words, a voter would have in a constituency a list of candidates that he could vote for. He would see their faces, he knows their names, and then a second vote to vote for the proportionate representation in Parliament. And we feel that that method is much better for accountability, for general contact between the voter and Parliament. And this is in fact what the Ministerial Advisory Committee advised the Minister to do. This was the committee that was set up by the Minister of Home Affairs to advise him on how to deal with the Constitutional Court judgment. But the Minister decided not to accept their recommendation and instead to go for the minority advice. And that advice was to do minimal changes to the existing system, where independent candidates would effectively stand in a whole province and where they would need to get a certain proportion of the vote in order to be elected. So I hope that that has brought the whole discussion, or it brought a bit more clarity to the whole discussion. It's not just a question of independent candidates. It goes much wider than that.
Well, indeed. And I mean, this is where it also gets to the basis of our system, which is proportional representation. Now, how do you bring in, as you say, the system that would have geographic constituency, so who your local member of Parliament is, and have proportional representation at the same time? And the obvious answer is to look to our local government elections where we do that and follow that example. That's already quite complicated. I come across plenty of people who say, why do I vote 3 times or twice in a metro? And yeah. Anton, I've practiced my answer, but it's not a great one.
I think that, it's very difficult to find a perfect solution to elections. But this one at least has a balance where people feel that they know who they are voting for locally and they know who they vote for on a national basis. And the two could be the same party or they could split their vote. But I think that, what one needs to add here is that this method that is used in local elections would also be much more efficient in dealing with independent candidates, because independent candidates typically have a very local presence, a very local resonance, and that would be very suitable for a constituency, whereas the bill that's before Parliament would make them stand in a province, which I think in a way defeats the purpose of independent candidates.
The clock is ticking. The Election Commission has an election to actually plan for in about 20 months from now. It needs to know what's going to happen. The ANC wants to pass this legislation that you and others have criticised. Anton, I'm not a betting person, but if I were, I would say this is all going to go to court, and in 2024, despite everyone's best wishes, we're probably going to vote using the current system.
Yes, I think the IEC needs about, 18 months to prepare for an election. So I think if it's difficult to look into the future, 18 months hence, but I think that there is no time left for the IEC effectively to set up a completely new system. But I think that the troubling thing about this whole affair is that the Constitutional Court judgment was in June 2020. We are now in October 2022, and it still hasn't been finalized. And, one wonders whether this is as a result of a lack of attention, incompetence, or whether it was done on purpose.
Anton, I know where I sit on those three questions. Anton, thank you very much indeed. Anton Van Dalsen is a legal counsellor at the Helen Suzman Foundation.